lately, we opened 7 centers in the Saudi Arabia. We, in fact, received a request from Kuwait and from Bahrain. I would say most of the GCC countries, as well as Yemen, to in fact take this, project to them, and this is what we did. So we introduced the early childhood sector to them, and of course now all these countries now are working very well. I mean, this sector, and
thank you so much. I really appreciate that. We have to move because I know it's the last session and we are short of time. Maricel, could you highlight some of the steps that UNESCO, as the lead agency for Sustainable Development Goal 4, has taken to foster partnerships with the private sector, as well as civil society organizations at national as well as regional level, especially within the Gulf states?
Okay. As mentioned by Ford earlier, the UN system and all other agencies are all mobilized to support the Sustainable Development Goal. And given the interrelatedness of education with other SDGs, it's a cross-cutting issue actually. For instance, education is related to SDG 1 on poverty alleviation, SDG 3 on health and well-being, SDG 17 on partnership. That's why we at UNESCO, we focus on establishing coordination mechanisms in rolling out the Education 2030. UNESCO, as a lead agency for education, we are entrusted to roll out Education 2030. And with this, at the global level, we convene the Global Steering Committee with other convening agencies like UNDP and other development agencies as World Bank and other non-government organizations. And at the sub-regional level or at the regional level, we have the Arab education partners. And at UNESCO, UNESCO Office for the Gulf States and Yemen, we convened the SDG 4 Education 2030 Sub-Regional Partners Group. It is composed of UN agencies in the region, and like UNDP, we have UNICEF, the World Bank in Kuwait, and we have a non-government organization and foundations like Al-Qasimi, the Arab Bureau of Education for the Gulf States based in Riyadh, and also other UNESCO Category 2 centers like the Regional Center for Education Planning, it's based in Sharjah. We also have the RCQE based in Riyadh and RCICT based in Bahrain. So we met alongside with the Global Steering Committee. We met at the Gulf States, UNESCO being the chair, several times to discuss and harmonize our efforts together, because we want to avoid duplication of work. So we need to synergize with all our efforts. So the education partners, we have identified our roles and responsibilities in rolling out the Education 2030. And we have identified 4 key priority areas for the Gulf states all together. And the 4 areas I would like to mention. The first is the mapping of data and data sources to enable monitoring of SDG 4 targets. So we work with the UNESCO UIS in this area, because data is a very big issue. For instance, in the Gulf states, it's not easy to find data online and also from the ministries. So this is one priority area that we have to work together as partners. And another is the capacity development for educational planning. So we have to prepare the policymakers. We have to provide them informed policy. Like what we are doing now, maybe it's good that if we communicate with them the results of this meeting, so we provide them capacity development.
Thank you so much. Would you like to
Two more. And another issue here at the Cove is the educational quality. So financing is not an issue. They have access to education, but the question is, are we financing where quality matters? So that's it.
Excellent. Thank you very much for this first detailed round. The second round is going to be brisker, and they're going to have 2 minutes each for each speaker, if that's all right, because I know we are wrapping up and we have the conclusions ahead. But I would like to ask Mr. Mauring, with the new contributions of new partners, we can have more long-term investment in a sustainable infrastructure. We can spur innovations. We can transfer technological know-how. We can also have, perhaps like yesterday, we had some speakers speaking about the health and well-being of learners in classrooms. So in your perspective, how do you draw in, within the framework of the Sustainable Development Goals, how are you drawing in new partnerships with the private sector, with civil society, to have joint activities? And then how do you measure the impact of these partnerships?
It's not an easy question to answer, to be honest, because it is not so nicely done that all the partners in the world is in one framework, and then you measure the outcomes. It is very, very scattered, and you know, working together with foundations, private sector, civil society, governments is not a new thing. It happened also before, but of course the necessity of working together in partnerships is intensified in the universality of the agenda of the SDGs. The SDG itself is an outcome of a process of multi-stakeholders. Actually, when selecting the SDGs, 10 million people were polled. Large number of civil society, research institutions, of course all the 193 member states were consulted, so eventually one could have a common framework. And let me just mention some of these platforms that exist. You have the South-South cooperation that is working on disseminating information and sharing experiences and mobilizing partners. So it's not only a north to south agenda. You have UNDESA, which has an Office of Partnerships, which in turn has a UN fund for international partnerships. And you have what is called the UNSIF, which is UNDP SDG Impact Fund, which brings together philanthropies, private sector, civil society, research institutions with governments for mobilizing finance. And you have also the Addis Ababa forum that recently also looked into development finance. So financing is perhaps been an outcome in itself now, how different partners are working together to finance. When it comes to the outcome on the SDGs, I think it's more complex and too early to say what the outcomes are, but architectures now have been established, and I think based on past experiences working with partners in mobilizing finance, I've now doubt that this will be essential in reaching the SDGs.
Wow, that makes my head spin with all the with the new emerging architecture for partnerships and all these different groups and players on board. So perhaps, Natasha, you might just kind of demystify for us, how do you enhance complementarity and avoid duplication in the work you and your partners carry out?
Yes, it's an excellent question, one we're struggling with, but I think what's been very helpful, first of all, I'd like to thank UNESCO. One of the things that Dr. Farrell in particular, she took a great deal of initiative coming to the GCS, I think now second time, yeah. And the first time really that for us to engage with UNESCO and then to engage more meaningfully with the SDGs through the sub-regional partnership group. I think that's been very helpful in knowing what other philanthropic and civil society and private sector agencies are doing. But I think increasingly we need more of these kind of gatherings where people come together and share what are you working on, because often you'll read about an initiative in the newspaper that you're actually doing something very similar, and then it's a lot of duplication again of efforts into the same thing. So I think UNESCO has a really important role to play in helping gather entities together so that we can avoid that and we can find out what each other is doing. I think the other thing I'll just highlight is the Arab Foundations Forum and these regional forums that bring together philanthropic organizations are really helpful as well.
And this forum here today, I mean,
And
it's really great to learn how, you know, all the different research, the policy research that has been carried on for more informed dialogue. So this is really, I mean, a very critical role that Al-Qasimi Foundation is playing. Mr. Al-Jabrin, would you like to share with us, you have a long-standing partnership with UNESCO over since 1982. So could you share us some of the outcomes of this engagement and maybe an example of, you know, one of your key partnerships with UNESCO?
Yes.
Or maybe with some other organizations, other UN
Yes,
agencies as well.
we have a story with, I would say, most of UN organization. If you go back to the, you know, the drawing, I mean, the picture behind, you know, the SDGs, we are before the SDGs. In 1980, since our establishment, we are, you know, concentrated on early childhood education. That's why this is, you know, one of the SDGs goal. Focusing on empowering of women, focusing also on NGOs, as also poverty, because poverty, you know, we are the leading institution in the Arab field to provide, you know, microfinance for the poor. So we are, I would say, working for the poor people. We established also the Arab Open University, and maybe here we have His Excellency, the Dr. Abdullah Al-Ajmi. He is also Vice Rector of Kuwait University. In Kuwait, you know, Arab Open University. So he may be at a certain time, you know, jump on the stage and give us a good example on the collaboration with this Arab Open University. Arab Open University is belong to AgFund. AgFund is the owner of this, and now it is working in 9 countries. Especially, Saudi Arabia especially has, you know, maybe six Abdullah or 7 branch, you know, for this university. Each big town we open, you know, a university. This is also, I mean, it is very cheap. With $1,000 to pay for the tuition of the whole year, you know. So by 4,000 US dollar, you could also, you know, finance your master, bachelor, you know, degree. This is for the poor people also, because you know, the rich people, they go to another university, not also to you know, open or distant.
That is really important. So the equity issue, you are through the open education the universities, you are having more equitable access to higher education. I think that is really critical. I'm going to move very quickly because I know we are constrained for time, and maybe ask Maricel that in your perspective, Maricel.
You promised me not to stop me, you know.
No,
I did last time, you know, exercise, you know.
2 minutes for each speaker.
But you are lucky because I can't read my handwriting.
But we also want to open up the floor for the participants and have some questions, exciting questions for you. So, can you, Maricel, in your perspective, what has been the impact of the coordination mechanisms to enhance partnerships for SDG 4 at the Gulf level? What would you say about that? And we'll be 2 minutes, we'll have a quick response.
I think at this stage we cannot really measure we cannot really say the impact of the coordination mechanisms for SDG 4, but we can only see the impact when the countries themselves take ownership of the SDG of the the indicators and put them, align them in their national indicators. So we can say we can say some outputs, like for instance with our efforts at the UNESCO Office for the Gulf States, we conduct multi-stakeholders partnership, national policy dialogues with countries. We go to the countries, we unpack the SDG for Education 2030 with other ED partners, and to assist the countries in coming up with a national roadmap for its SDG for Education 2030. So this is a concrete example that we can say that we have an impact when it comes to coordination mechanisms. So, for instance, in Qatar, they started aligning their national targets with the global targets. And they have identified 4 key areas. Like, first is the early childhood development. Because in Qatar, only 60% Qatari students go to kindergarten. So this is one issue that has been long-standing, as mentioned by Mr. Jibrin Al-Jibrin. So until now, it's one of the challenges. And
This is really helpful. I also understand that UNESCO, because I am also UNESCO, so I just want to compliment. There's a SDG for awareness raising campaign with schools, with youth, and with school children. And I think with some of the countries we've already started the campaign.
like in Oman, we work with Oman. And then the video for SDG4 campaign is available in our website.
Yes.
So yeah.
Excellent. So this is really helpful. We want to open up the floor for discussion, but we maybe give Mr. Mauring just the last, maybe from the UN, within the UN system, you might want to make a recommendation to enhance partnerships in support to help achieve SDGs in this region. Would you have some words of advice for us? And then we would like to open up the floor and then have answers for all the panelists, a question and answer session.
If I may, I will tackle it slightly different. What is vital for achieving the SDGs, including partnerships? To achieve the SDGs, it's estimated that between $5 and $7 trillion annually is needed in investments. Now, it stands to reason that it's not feasible to do that without working with national governments. National governments has to be at the center of national efforts, together with partners, of course, at the national levels, because the main factor in success in how government is prioritizing and sharpening its priorities to reach the SDGs, including in education. And then, of course, 60% of global GDP is private sector. And of course, to succeed in achieving SDGs without private sector being an important part of it, either directly or through philanthropy or foundations that they are supporting, is not going to be feasible. And knowledge in research is going to be vital as well. And one last thing, which is linked to UNESCO's agenda, and to reach SDGs is a universal agenda, including the behavior that each one of us is having on the impact on the planet. We have to start with the young people, and education and awareness raising on this, and to use education system of this awareness raising is vital for achieving the 2030 development agenda.
Thank you very much. I would like to thank all the panelists, and perhaps